Hey, and welcome guys. Thank you for joining me. This will be part 3 of our Hasbro 29-inch Millennium Falcon customization. As you can see here, I'm in the process of marking out where my stand, my projector mount that I purchased that's going to display our Falcon. I need to, before I get much further with adding and stuff to it, I need to mark out where these holes are going to go. I need to drill some holes. I have some 2-inch bolts that I'm going to use to attach them. Now it won't be that close to the model. Again, I have these about 3/4 of an inch to an inch standoffs. They're going to go underneath this, so it'll lift it up a little bit and give us a little bit of clearance in there. Again, it's the bottom. I'm not too worried about it, but I need to go ahead and mark out where I'm going to drill the holes for my bolts. I need to make sure I'm not drilling into any supports or any wiring that I've already attached to it. So right now I'm just kind of getting a look. I'm going to mark it, flip it over, check it, double check it. I'm going to go ahead. Right now I think this is a good position. I'm not sure about these right here, but I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bolts, these arms to our mount, so they'll be locked in position. And then if I need to change it, then I can come back and just loosen it up and move it accordingly. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll just keep moving on with the project. All right, well, I've attached my projector mount to the bottom of my Millennium Falcon, and just going to show you, I'm going to be freehanding the camera so I can take you up closer to look, so forgive me if it's a little shaky. But first of all, you can see down here, and this is just temporary, I'm going to have to take it off to paint it. But I want to go ahead and make sure I had clearance, and there weren't going to be issues of fit problems because of the bolts. You can see the standoffs. I think they make it a lot nicer. You get a lot more clearance up under here, and you'll be able to see the detail against the bottom. So, but this particular projector mount, as you can see, you can angle it in all different kind of directions. Basically 360 degrees of angles. You can go left, right, front, back, whatever you want to do. Probably a bit overkill. It's super stable. Right now it's just temporarily attached to a piece of wood here. But I'm going to bring you up here and show you the bolts coming up. I had to make sure that they had clearance. I don't think they're going to be any issue. I want to make sure that they weren't going to interfere with the wiring. As I drilled holes, I had to mark and make sure I wasn't drilling into the wiring. Now some of the other work I've done, you can see where I've did some light blocking here in the cockpit area, and I've attached some a strip of 3 ultra bright LEDs. I think those are 5mm. I forget the exact size of them. And we got the wiring pretty much all ready to go. We have our fiber optics now joined in this tube here with just some tape holding it all down. And so I've already tested it. All the lights are working. Again, we have those 4 red LEDs inside there, so if one goes down, even 2 or 3, I'm still going to have some kind of light source in there. We have our engine lighting over here, all connected. I think I showed you that in the last video. So I think it's looking good. I think that will display it nicely. We'll maybe do something more. Obviously, we'll try to do something more with the base, give it a little bit better look of some sort. So I still have attached the wiring for this LED that goes up front here, and I need to run it back there. So anyway, happy with that. I think that's not going to cause any issues. And the biggest thing I have to look out for is these points where the model fits in these screw points, because I need to use all those or as much as possible. You can see here I've kept all these screw points. This one's going to block our engine lighting a little, but I've seen where people have had issues with that. Now this is the bottom. This is the upper part fits inside there, so you don't have to worry about clearance on the side. When I do the upper part, then I have to make sure that I'm not blocking it so it won't fit inside there, if you know what I'm talking about. So we'll just keep moving forward. And here you can see where I'm starting to attach all our detail pieces. I'm using some 5-minute epoxy, 2-part epoxy, so I'll have a nice secure grip. And just keeping it in place. It should be, I think it's been quite a few minutes now, so that should be nice and secure on there. Only thing I'm a little worried about is some of these pieces, as I bent it, it was straight. I tried to glue them in very good, but I'm just going to have to keep an eye out for parts that may pop off because of bending that slightly. But we have, this is actually going to be the left side, I guess. And so pretty happy with how that detail. Again, it's not going to be accurate to the filming model, but it'll have a lot of detail, and I think it'll look really nice once we get done. All right, now I'm in the process of trying to apply the battle damage to our Falcon. One of the most known areas is the, I guess, blaster hits that are on this panel. Now I took the, looked at the 32-inch studio model and did my best to kind of replicate the different hit marks. You had a series of larger ones and then some smaller ones kind of mixed in between. So I've taken a pencil and drawn out where I need to apply those damage hits. And I'm first going to drill out the holes, and of course we'll have to glue some styrene excuse me, some styrene plastic underneath. We don't want it just looking in and light bleeding through, but we do want a actual hole. If you look at the model, the studio model, there's an actual hole, not just like a scuff mark. So I want to have at least one layer of depth into our hole. So we'll drill those out, and then I'll probably take a soldering iron and start roughing up the edges a little bit. I also have some damage over here. I did my best to kind of replicate where that's going to go. Made this, not really a hole, it's more of like a large scratch inside. So I made us try to see if I can do it with a soldering iron, just kind of melting the plastic and getting some grooves in there. And I think I'm missing like a piece of piping right here. And I may try to see if I can glue something on there to replicate the piping that connects kind of up here, down there, give it a little bit more detail. The closer I look, the more things you start to notice. There are some more damage hits and throughout the Falcon, but these are probably the most well known, at least on the surface. I noticed some underneath and on the sides a little here and there, so I'm just going to get busy drilling these out and we'll see how that turns out. All right, had a little bit of a snafu. I forgot to accommodate the wiring that's going to go into my cockpit. Here you can see my cockpit all painted up, and I don't know if I'll be able to put a figure in there or not. I haven't really found anything, so it may just be without a figure. But I painted that up. As you can see, there's an LED running into here, and it's going to have some red lights. There's a 3mm red LED right here, and I'll have some holes drilled out and filled with some canopy glue. So you'll see some red lighting there. But I forgot that this is actually going to be attached to the top part. So when I go to fit the two parts together, I'm going to have to plug this in. So I attach this little micro plug, so I don't have to try to fix the wiring. I can just plug it, and then I can push it back through this hole. I had to kind of splice into the wiring up here to accommodate that. So I forgot about that. Now, as far as the guns that I talked about, I came up with this. This is my printed design that is a modified design. The original one, if you remember from my first video, just had these wonky barrels. I did some a lot of changes, added some detail, changed some things around. Here you can see one still on its support. I printed it that way. I find that when you have something like long barrels or something, if you can do it vertical, it tends to be come out a little bit better. You don't have to put supports in, especially on these delicate parts right here. I didn't want to connect supports, so I just did it in this vertical position here, and I think it printed out quite nicely. So I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out, and so obviously that'll go on the top. I'm not going to worry about the bottom. It's molded in. I basically have to cut the whole center section out right here and rebuild that, and that's just too much work for something that's barely seen. So I've attached my sidewalls, and I'm getting close to putting the top on. I think what I need to do is go ahead and pull this off the base here and go ahead and start painting the bottom side. I think it's going to be easier that way than trying to attach everything. I've had some questions about the plastic and painting, and I find that just using a normal painter primer first, and I'm just actually just using this one I got from Ace, protective primer. It seems to be doing quite well. I've put it on small parts. I've allowed it to sit for weeks now. It seems to adhere to the plastic quite well. I haven't had a major issue with that. So, or hadn't had any issues with doing it that way. So I think that this putting a nice primer coat on it will solve our painting issues, and hopefully I won't have to worry about it cracking off. So I need to pull this off and protect all my lighting stuff. I'll probably have to put some kind of masking on that while I paint the bottom side or prime it, and then start painting on it. All right, here's just a quick look at the finished damaged parts. I have primed over it. I drilled out the holes with different size drill bits, went in with a soldering iron and roughed it up. I then added a piece of styrene plastic on the back side, and that's just hot glue kind of holding that into position, and it's got some primer over it just to make sure. But I'm happy how that turned out. You can see where I primed over it now. Again, I was just testing out the primer on some small sections. It seems to be adhering to the plastic. I don't see any issues with it on there. On this side, I see where I just did some scratches again with just a soldering iron. I had a small piece of piping in here I got to clean up. This is rubberized super glue. That's why it's black in color. I need to kind of clean up those edges with some debonding agent that I have, and so we don't have any big goops right there. So just a quick picture of our damage marks. All right, here you can see where I primed the bottom section of our Millennium Falcon. I've also took some black spray paint and just kind of free-handed in some pre-shading, and I think I'm going to end the video here, as we're going to be moving in our next video into the actual painting. Now, again, the primer seems to be doing just fine. It seems to be holding. I don't see any issues with it. So I think we're good into moving on to a base coat. But we'll get into that in the next video. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.